everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and today I'm going to be starting a reading vlog for Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. First off, yes, I did dye my hair. It is darker. I haven't dyed my hair literally since I was in high school, but my partner's out of town this week and I got bored, and so I decided what better time to make a dramatic change to your hair. It's not that dramatic. It's just a little bit darker, a little bit redder. I need to get a couple washes out for it to really settle into the color that I want it to be. But yeah, that's how my week's going. Anyways, I'm gonna be starting a reading vlog for this Gothic love story. I feel like this is just the perfect time with Valentine's Day. Obviously, I want to read more romance, but I'm still a spooky girl. I still want the spooks. So I'm going to be picking up this Gothic love story and hopefully I'm gonna love it. I feel like I stand a pretty good chance at enjoying it because it does remind me of the vibes of The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White, which was one of my top favorite books of last year. So if it's anything like that, then I should be in good hands. As for what the story is about, it says it is a Gothic tale full of mystery and romance. You're following Hazel Sinnett, a lady who wants to be a surgeon more than she wants to marry, and Jack Cure, a resurrection man who's just trying to survive in a city where it's too easy to die. Basically, Hazel wants to work in the medical field, but in this world that Hazel lives in, it is not common for women to be working in the medical field, so she's having trouble doing that. She ends up getting kicked out of her lectures that she has with this professor who she had previously made a deal with, and the professor said that if she could pass the medical exam on her own, he would allow her to continue her career, but then she gets kicked out, so she's not going to be able to study anymore. But then she runs into Jack, who has his own problems. Strange men have been skulking around cemeteries, his friends are disappearing off the streets, and the dreaded Roman fever, which wiped out thousands a few years ago, is back with a vengeance. And they end up working together to uncover the secrets buried, not just in unmarked graves, but in the very heart of Edinburgh society. I've never read from Dana Schwartz before, so this is going to be my first time reading one of her novels. I'm pretty sure I've probably read some articles from her. Her name sounds super familiar, and so I at least know of her and have seen her out on the internet, but I'm hearing amazing things for this book. I'm absolutely obsessed with the cover. It's one of my favorite covers of the year so far. I know it's only February, but I mean, I feel like this is gonna be hard to beat. So I really hope that I end up loving it, but we're just gonna see. Could go either way. So I've started Anatomy and right now I'm about 50 pages into the book. I've been on reading sprints tonight with Jessie from Reading with Jess. She typically does them on Monday nights, but this week she's doing it on a Tuesday night, and it's a Tuesday, so here we are. And I'm having so much fun. There's so many of my friends in there too, so we're all just chatting and it's so much fun. I'm having a really good time with this book so far. I just love the vibes of this book. It is a Gothic story, and so with Gothic stories, a lot of what there is to enjoy is the atmosphere, but I'm also just really liking how our main character is really, not really quirky isn't the right word, but I just really like her personality. She's very headstrong, strong-willed, and just kind of funny to be reading. So yeah, I'm having a really good time. It is a little, I guess, slower paced than I was expecting it to be. Just based off of the synopsis, I thought we were going to start at the book with her getting kicked out of the lectures and meeting the dude and going from there, but it starts before that. So right now she's just hearing about this lecture for the first time and she's getting interested into going to this anatomy lecture because it's this really famous doctor who's doing it. And she's actually set to be married to her cousin Bernard. And so she's trying to convince him to go with her because that's the only way she's gonna be able to go. But he doesn't want to, so now she's trying to figure out how to sneak in. So that's pretty much the setup of where we are so far. But you learn about her family and the circumstances with her family. There is a sickness called the Roman fever going around that's freaking out a lot of people and it's killing a lot of people. And then there are the resurrectionists who are resurrecting corpses and people who are digging up graves and spies who are giving the secrets of which bodies to dig up. And I just really like the vibes. It's just like a really good, light, spooky, gothic YA read. It's pretty much everything I wanted it to be so far. So I'm having a really good time. I hope I continue to enjoy it. But I'm going to read some more tonight. We're on our last reading sprint, so I've got about 40 minutes left on the reading sprint, and then I'm gonna read more probably when I go to bed as well, because it is getting a little bit late. So I'll check in with you again sometime tomorrow and let you know how far I got and how it's going at that point. Hello, it is now the next day. It's like 9:30 at night. I waited all day to update you. I didn't end up reading too much more of Anatomy last night, but I did read more today. I have just been on a reading sprint kick this week, and tonight, since it's Wednesday night, Savannah was having her reading sprints. Savannah of Riveting Reads, she does reading sprints every Wednesday night, so I was watching hers tonight, and I was starting to edit the vlog, and I realized this is my third reading sprint of this vlog. And I normally don't get to join this many throughout the week, but with my partner traveling this week and I'm just here alone, I have a lot more extra time to myself and have just been really loving the reading sprints this week. So that's been really nice. But I did end up reading more of this tonight, and I'm getting kind of close to the halfway point of the book. I'm still really loving it. I'm really glad I'm having a good time with this one. Part of me was a little bit worried that because it's YA or because it's more marketed as a love story that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much, but so far, I mean, I'm still just having a really great time. It's filled with a ton of gothic atmosphere, and it just feels like a book that the author had fun writing, which I really love when you can tell that an author had fun writing a book. This feels like a passion project. Like I can see the mood board that was probably put together, or the Spotify playlist that was put together to build the inspiration and the atmosphere for this book and just all of the components of it. So I'm just really loving it. There's really nothing about it that's like mind-blowing, exceptional. I think everyone's gonna love this book. I think it just really fits what I like in books in particular. There's so many like gross things in it because there is a lot of surgery in the book, and so there's a lot of organs and sawing limbs off and just like really gross things, but not in a super gross tone. So I don't know, I just feel like this is my aesthetic, I guess. If you had to give yourself an aesthetic, this is the aesthetic that I enjoy. I would love to see this as a movie. It's just like the cobblestones and the horse carriages and the anatomy lectures and the organs in jars and the skulls and digging up the graves. And so I just really like it. There's also a little bit of a turn that the story took, not really a turn, but just like an element in how the story is being moved forward that I wasn't expecting. I honestly should have been expecting, because I feel like it's kind of common in these styles of gothic stories, especially those with more of a feminist tone, to use this kind of trope, but I just wasn't expecting it, so I'm enjoying that too. Don't want to spoil that for anyone, but yeah, I'm just having a really good time. So I'm gonna keep on reading more tonight, and I'll update you in another 50 to 100 pages. Hello, good morning. It is a couple days later now, I think, but I have read a lot more of Anatomy, and I'm basically almost done with the book at this point. I'm around page 260, and I'm planning on finishing it this morning, so I did want to check in with you one more time before I completely finish the book and let you know how it's going. It's still overall going good, I would say. I think this latest portion that I've read has been not weaker part of the book, but it's when I've started to get a little bit less in love with it. There's nothing wrong wrong in particular about it. It's just definitely a slower book. I think the expectations for how the synopsis sets you up with the story and the marketing of the book as a love story just kind of sets you up a little bit incorrectly for what you're going to get in this book. I'm still liking the book. I think it's just the expectations were weird. So as far as this being a love story, it takes a really long time for the romance element to take place in the story, definitely over the halfway mark before that really even starts to come up, which is fine. And I think that's the right pacing for the story. I think I would have just maybe written the synopsis differently and maybe not called it a love story. I don't know if this title is like a nod to something else with the way that it's written and the fact that it calls itself out as a love story. I don't know if that was purposeful in any way other than to try to make it look like it was a romance book and kind of marketed it as a YA romance. But I do think that was a little misleading. Again, I'm fine with it. I like that it's not super romance heavy, but it is misleading and a little bit confusing. Another thing that sort of pulls me out of the story every now and again is just kind of inconsistent dialect in how the people are speaking. Sometimes you're reading it and it feels very authentic to like Victorian era or whatever era this is supposed to be, you know, like old-timey Gothic stuff. And other times you're reading it and it just kind of sounds like how people talk today. And sometimes within a scene, people kind of flick back and forth between that. So that kind of pulls me out a little bit of it as well. Or like it'll be reading a little more modern for a bit and then someone comes in and starts speaking really old-timey and then it throws me off because I remember it's old-timey. So that's also just like a little wonky thing with the book. Like I said, it's not like a perfect book. I don't think this is going to be something that everyone's going to love. I just mainly really like the atmosphere of this and the overall aesthetic of it and the light creepiness to it as well. So that's still how I feel. I really like our main character Hazel. I really like watching her progression throughout the novel and seeing her kind of coming of age and really just following her path. She's very intellectually curious, which I find to be a really interesting type of main character to follow. I really just like her journey and the path that she has ended up on and how she's really taking control over her life and her education. The romance element is probably my least favorite part of the book. I kind of wish it didn't have a romantic element at all because I just want to watch Hazel flourish on her own. I don't really care about a romantic partner for her, but it's really not too much of the story, so it's not really bothering me at all. But yeah, I'm gonna finish this book now. I've got about 50-ish pages left in the book. It's a little over 300 pages, so I'm gonna finish it now and we'll see what my final thoughts are. Okay, I have finished and I have to say overall it was definitely a enjoyable read. It definitely is one though that is going to be tricky to recommend to people because I'm not really sure exactly who's going to enjoy this book and who might not. Hello, editing Ashley here. I've thought more about this and how to recommend this book to some people and not to others, and this is what I have come up with. So I think this book is really good for people who like the Gothic atmosphere. If you want all the Gothic vibes, this book definitely has it. Also fans of strong female characters, that is really what holds this book together for me. And then a couple comp titles in movies and books that I would recommend. Firstly, Enola Holmes. I haven't read the books, but I have seen the movie and it really gives off similar vibes to that. The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, and sort of gives off vibes of Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire. As for who this book is maybe not the best for, I would say people who are expecting a front-facing romance, don't go into this book thinking that you're going to fall in love with these characters and the connection between them. It's really not a huge part of the story for the most part. Also, people who are plot-driven readers, this is more of a character-driven book in my opinion. So if you don't like slow-moving books that are really more of a character study and you're watching a character really grow on their path, if you want something with a lot of action and mystery and twist, this isn't going to be that. This is going to be more for people who like those character-driven books. And then also people who don't like YA. This certainly reads more like a YA. And so if you don't like young adult books and the typical tropes and types of characters that typically come along with them, then you might not love this one. I also just feel like the way the book is described and the way the synopsis is laid out just doesn't really capture the book, or like maybe the book kind of changes around the halfway point and then it feels kind of weird. I think my biggest thing is it feels like it's sort of a YA horror story, it's sort of a YA coming of age, and it's sort of a romance. And it's all those things kind of coming together, and I felt a little bit of tension between some of those. By the end, I definitely was not bought into the romance element of the story, like at all, between the two characters. I just feel like we didn't get enough time to have them have intimate conversations and get to know one another and to make me feel super attached to them as a couple. But I did really like Hazel's character, and I liked her progression through the story. There's also the horror elements. There's a murder mystery kind of going through the plot as well, or like people are being murdered and it's a mystery as to why. I don't know if I would call it like a murder mystery. It doesn't have those kind of like laying out the clues, piecing it together type vibes. It's kind of obvious what's going on, but then the character figures it out. And then there is a reveal at the end that I found really interesting and compelling, and I wish we would have spent more time on that. And then a decision that has to be made in the end, which I also felt like was really interesting and could have played more into the story. So I think overall, the story had so much potential. I think it was just doing a lot of things, and it was hard to feel like any of it was fleshed out enough and done super well. So I think if I was just giving this book a rating, it would probably be a 3-star. Because I enjoyed it so much and had a good time with it, and it had a lot of things that I personally enjoyed, I think I'm going to give it a 4-star. But for the sake of people watching this video wondering if this is like an amazing book, I would probably say it's like a 3-star. Also, my hand is getting sore. Let me set my camera down. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed this. I thought it was a good book. It was a good time for me in particular. There's definitely a lot of things I would have loved to see fleshed out a little more. But for a YA horror / romance / whatever you want to call this, it was a good enough time. I do think that is the main thing that I want to leave you with when you're considering picking up this book, is just not going into it with the expectation that it's a romance, because it's not really a romance book. There is a romance element that is introduced like after the halfway point, and you're gonna see characters be in love, but it feels like you're being told they're in love and not being shown how they're falling in love, so it doesn't really feel like much of a romance. It definitely feels more of a YA coming of age in a historical period, watching this young woman who is incredibly ambitious and intellectually curious on her journey to find her way in life and be able to do something more meaningful than just being a wife to a guy that she's been betrothed to her whole life. So if you like stories like that, then I think you'll enjoy this. I don't think it's as good as something like The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. If you're looking for those themes, that's the book I would recommend over this one. But if you read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein and you're looking for a little bit more of something with those similar vibes, but maybe with a bit of a more YA feel, then this is the one I would recommend that you pick up next. But yeah, that is it for this reading vlog. Let me know if you've read this book in the comments below, or let me know if I've helped inform your decision as to whether or not you want to read the book. If you have any other questions about the book, feel free to leave those in the comments too, and I'll make sure that I answer as many of those as I can, because I don't know if I did the best job explaining it at all different points in this video, but happy to chat more about it down below. And as we're doing now, adding emojis for the videos, if you want to leave an emoji in the comments to show that you either got to the end of the video or you don't really know what else to comment, then today's emoji is going to be the brain emoji, because there's a lot of organs in this book. The brain isn't really a huge part of it. It's more of a heart, but I feel like I want to do something more unique than a heart. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.